Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm back to talk about this Aquarius full moon, which is a humdinger. And I've been excited to talk about this full moon because it touches on so many things that are really percolating through 2026, all the way through the year and into next year, and really emphasizes this basket formation that has everybody all jazzed up. I'm going to speak a little bit about that longer term vision of things changing because whenever there is an outer planet configuration that is so loud in terms of the exact formation, we do see permanent change. Permanent meaning in the context of an impermanent world. So long term structural change is what we will see and not always in the way that one might want to see it. It's going to be change, and how that change is configured is going to be in the direction of what is happening already. So it's not something new that is going to intervene. It's something that's on its way already. So I'll be looking at that a little bit, and then I'm going to look at the moon from the, of course, chart itself, delineating what it represents in my way of looking at it, and then looking at it from the perspective of the lunar families and getting the dates of the moons that are attached to this cycle. This is the peak of the cycle of something that began a year and a half ago. So there's three ways of looking at moons. In fact, if we look at the lunation just by sign, we can say, well, there was a new moon that happened in Aquarius early in 2026. And we can say in a general sense, this is a response to that new moon. But actually, there's a more precise way, and that is using the lunar families or the gestation cycle that repeats every 9 months, that there's a degree where the moon shows up that reconfigures, it's not really the word, re-triggers. I keep trying to avoid using that word. Activates, let's say activates the point of the lunation. And that's what I like to pick up on because it can give us a really clear cycle and things to look at. And this particular cycle of this full moon ends on an eclipse in Aquarius at this same degree. So it's something that is worth really paying attention to, both for our own experience of the 6.5 degrees of Aquarius that it's happening in, but also our collective experience, because it will get a response a year and a half from now that we will remember based on what's happening here. And then there's another aspect of this, which is that, of course, the nodal axis has shifted, and that is recalling the degree of the eclipse of February. The 17th of February was this new moon in Aquarius that was indeed a solar eclipse at 28 degrees of Aquarius, almost 29 Aquarius, and that's where we find the lunar nodes as well. Now, the other aspect of this is that there's a cycle to every country or every chart, including your own, your natal chart. And this will be picking up on cycles in your own chart, and it will be picking up on cycles in certain national charts, and very uh, intensively, loudly is going to be it is going to be affecting the U.S. Sibley chart. So I was interested that Chris Brennan did a really long very long look at a new potential for a Libra rising chart for the US. I haven't had time to watch that, so I don't know what the rationale was, but I have a great deal of respect for Chris and the work that he does. It's very rigorous. So this would be interesting because I would love to see how that chart pairs up against this particular lunation. I know that major events through the last couple of centuries really trigger the Sibley chart. And that is why I use it, which has a Sagittarius rising, about 12 degrees Sagittarius rising. And then, of course, the sun in the eighth house in Cancer. So, in fact, this lunation is calling in the US Mars return, which is significant in itself because of all of the different effects of things that are happening from earlier this year, which triggered the combat or the attacks on Iran. For the second time, in fact, from there was attacking, I think it was the 12th of July, 2025. Israel attacked Iran. Um, and then we had this attack on Iran both times during negotiations, which is not great, diplomatically speaking, not helpful. And so that was on the 28th of February. And that was when we had the moon Mars rather, on the degree of the eclipse of the 17th of February. So whenever something recalls the point at which something major happens, it's going to recall some of the energy of the previous cycle and give more emphasis to it. And here, this is what's happening with the lunar nodes. So we'll pick up on that in a minute. In an overall sense, when we're looking at Aquarius, because this is where the moon is happening, it's in this very crowded energy of Aquarius. I've added a couple of things that I don't always talk about, but if you go back to those February events, you'll hear me talking about the fixed stars quite a bit because they were significant. We also had Uranus was on Algol at that time, and here we have Altair, where we find Juno, which is about contractual agreements and honoring contracts and honoring. In my case, I'm looking at this from the mundane perspective, so we'll see sign by sign how this impacts people individually, but this is on a mundane level where the social contract is really being broken, where there's something here that we've been dealing with for many, many months, because this is a cycle that has been ongoing now throughout much of 2026. And Pluto is, of course, here, and now Pluto is back in conjunction with Altair, and that's why I put it back here, where I had kind of left it for other sessions, simply because also it ends up being such a lot of everything. But it's really worth mentioning since Pluto is retrograding back to this sort of 3-degree point, very, very tightly conjoining Altair, which has an orb of conjunction of 2 degrees and 40 arc minutes. And that depends on the magnitude of the brightness of each fixed star. That's how they determine the orb in the tradition. And it's only ever by conjunction, by the way, so never calculate this by opposition, square, trine, etc. It's by conjunction for the fixed stars, full stop. And here when we have Pluto really since 2023 moving into the orb of Altair, we see that the events in Palestine and Israel have heated up in an extraordinary way, in a really powerful way. And this, especially when it became exact in 2024, was where it became very clear that Israel's intention was to completely destroy Gaza. And it was not even remotely credible, if it ever was, that it was about eliminating a terrorist group. And so here we're back into that energy. It was back into the foray. And perhaps this is also part of the story of Lebanon, where much the same is happening. And so these are things to pay attention to. These are really major trends that are being fed into this shape, this formation known as the basket, where the outer planets are all in this 4 degrees. Now, the basket itself is separating, the formation is separating, but it's still very, very tight. By the end of July, we have Jupiter conjoining the sun, which is illuminating the moon, which is conjoining this Pluto. So the moon is not conjunct Altair, but Pluto and Juno are. So this, and the South Node is here on Regulus still, and that's why I put that up there. It's been the case since June, or even late May. Yeah, even through May, June, July, and into August, the South Node, actually even through September, the South Node is on Regulus. And that's an important thing because Regulus signifies leaders, rulers, people in positions of power, authority figures of all kinds, in the same way that we have the Sun and Jupiter in Leo, symbolizing the same thing. And with the South Node going into Leo, we are going to see major, major, major changes of authority figures, powers, leaders, what it even means to be a leader. This would be a good question to answer in our times. Um, and yeah, I mean, sometimes it's almost it feels wrong to describe some of the people in charge as leaders because they're just so venal and self-serving, and it, of course, is the antithesis of a leader. So I want to point out for those of you who are really into astrology, there's so many aspects happening. As you can see, all these scribbles, all the lines here in the middle, they're talking to the event of the day in terms of what is the most intense. The way that this software is set up is that as the lines are darker, they are more close in orb, they're more impactful. As the lines weaken, you see some very thin faded lines there, then the impact is still there. It's just separating or it's not yet completed. It's not yet perfected. One of those that is a little bit weaker is that Mercury is separating from a square to Saturn. And Saturn is retrograde at this point, but it's just newly retrograde, so it's basically stationary. And it was stationing on the 26th of July, 26th to the 27th. It stopped, appeared to stop because it's, of course, an optical illusion. It appears to stop, and because of the orbit, the elliptical orbit of the planets, or the Earth rather, around the sun and the planets around the sun, we get this image that the planets are either moving away from us or towards us. And when they are in their stationary period, they're stationary only because they've reached the outer limits of their orbit, and then they change direction or appear to from our perspective on Earth. Of course, they're not doing anything of the sort. They're doing their own thing. They're moving through space, barreling through space, just as we are moving in a constant motion forward, not putting on the brakes and stationary retrograde. But this is what the apparent stationary retrograde is. And when a planet is retrograde, it means that it's very close to the Earth. It's at the cycle of it being the most impactful, most powerful. And this is a Saturn that's going to go all the way back to 7 degrees and 55 arc minutes of Aries, which is roughly where it was in March. So if we go back to late March, early April, we will be continuing to look at whatever has happened since that time, all the way through December, when Saturn will station on the 10th of December at that degree. And so here we've got a really powerful Saturn ruled by Mars, which is not in its happy place, but is also, remember, exactly at the return within a few arc minutes of a degree of the US Mars. And this is in a square to Venus. And you can see that square here. This is Mars squaring Venus, which creates a lot of tension. And neither Mars nor Venus are in their favorite places. Mars is ruled by a moon-ruled Mercury, moon being ruled by this Saturn, ruled by this Mars. You see, so they're all tied in together. This is exchanges, contracts, things that we are under obligation about. Saturn is in its position of fall because it's exalted in the opposite sign of Libra. And therefore, Saturn is also operating within a feeling of restriction. It's wanting to do things the right way, and Aries has the energy of Mars. It's impatient. Let's go. Let's do this thing. Shoot first, ask questions later, and Saturn resists that. This could be our blessing. And as much as people fear Saturn, don't like Saturn, this could be the actual blessing of this whole story. And the fact that Saturn itself is ruling this lunation, and this is the traditional rulership of Aquarius, is very significant because of the rulership here of this Mars, which is influenced by Mercury itself, that is itself in this new phase of moving direct since the what was it, the 24th of July. So I'm doing this on the 18th of July, and as of this point, Mercury is still retrograde, and Mercury is still pretty much at the degree, within the degree that it actually stationed direct. So we have slow-moving Mercury, a slow-moving Saturn, and a very fast and impulsive Mars. And so this is a square to Venus, who is also ruled by the same Mercury, which means that we tie right back into the whole story of the Moon and Saturn, and therefore Mars, and then Mercury once again. So this is a really important dynamic between all of these planets, and the fact that these planets, Venus and Mercury ruled Virgo, is also in her fall. She's in exaltation in Pisces, and therefore in a space of a little dissatisfaction. What is Venus? She's the markets. She represents, in a global sense, our capacity to negotiate things, to find an agreement, and especially in Virgo, looking for the thing that's not working, looking for the thing that's not working at its best, let's say, trying to find the optimal. But there can be a disgruntlement, a dissatisfaction here in this energy of Venus. And with Mars and its impatience in a square to this Venus, a lot of things can happen in ways that haven't been thought through, or have been thought through maybe from this place of negativity as opposed to constructive energy. And this would be something to notice in the world around us, and also in terms of agreements or discussions and ways that we're grappling with each other in our own private situation. If you notice here, we have these little lines. So this is the square between Venus and Mars. I'm just for the moment leaving Eris out of this picture, although Eris is also in a square with Venus as well. Just it's the square with Venus and Mars is tight. It's exact. It's called partile in the same degree. And that's why this line is a little faded, you can see on top, and this one is very dark. And so Ceres, in a general sense, is about our food supply or about what is available agriculturally or what's going on in terms of how we can nourish ourselves. And we can see that these events of this moment is part of this dissatisfaction. That's part of the story of markets and things going in the wrong direction. And in between here, we find at the opposite point of the lunation, so we have, of course, the Sun and Jupiter, which I'll describe in a moment, the what is called a sesquisquare or a semi-square. And that is the square is sorry, not sesquisquare, it's a semi-square, not a sesquisquare. Sesquisquare is a square and a half. A semi-square is half of a square. So if a square is 90 degrees, which we find here between Venus and Mars, 4 signs away, 90 degrees. And here what we find is that we need um, 45-degree angle between the planets. So here we have a 45-degree angle between Venus at 21 of Virgo and the Sun and Jupiter at 6 of Leo. And then 21, where Mars is in Gemini, we have a degree, pardon me, a square base. Sorry, we have, yes, a semi-square between Mars and Sun and Jupiter. There's so many things going on here. And what this does is it creates a really tense configuration because this also creates an inconjunct with Pluto and Juno, which are conjunct this moon. So that's what all of this is here, this tightness, which is causing this tension. So I'm just going to pause here because my throat is under tension as well. So I just need to pause. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I have this ongoing mold issue, and it just is like the bane of my existence. Um, anyway, so here we are with this very tense configuration, and this is an inconjunct from Venus to the lunation with Pluto and Juno, and an inconjunct from Mars to this lunation with Pluto and Juno. And so this whole emphasis of this moment in time is on our notion of values. And as I was starting to say, the notion of Aquarius, this whole energy of this full moon, has a lot to do with our ideology, our beliefs in terms of what is the right way to conduct ourselves or society or the way that we connect with other people. Aquarius is known for being idealistic, and that is something that I think is going to be challenged in this lunation. It's going to be something that shows up. And we're going to be noticing and having to deal with also different ways of working with um, how to restructure, how to become aware of the dynamic of power and control. So if we think about our ideology or our belief system as something that represents the way that we see ourselves and our role in the world, we can also see that when it hardens, and this is the shadow side of Aquarius, it hardens into an ideology that we do not question. And this would be this chipping away, questioning this ideology. One of the things that challenges, aside from all of the other challenges that I've just outlined here at this lunation, is that Jupiter is in the heart of the sun. So this is a rebirth moment. And in many ways, you can say, well, that's good. It's Jupiter in a new cycle with the sun. And so that's worth paying attention to as well, because this is a new solar cycle between Jupiter and the sun, which occurs every year as the sun comes around to meet up with Jupiter. And this time, of course, it's in the sign of Leo. But because of the impact of Pluto and the opposition of Jupiter-Pluto, we know that there's something really about power and about power and even money, because it's about rags to riches, that Aquarius energy of the hoi polloi, the populace, the common man, the common people, and the opposite being the ruler, the leader, the king, in the literal Leo way. And and if we think about this Jupiter under the beams of the sun, so it's in the heart of the sun, yes, but it's moving out of that, and it's also blinded by the sun. Anything too close to the sun, we can't see. And when we can't see it, that symbolism astrologically is that it's not really available in this moment. And what does Jupiter represent? It is its integrity. It's all about a a sense of our vision of our spirit or our morality, our higher judgment. It's the higher wisdom that we bring to life. It's divine wisdom, if you like, or a sense of what is divinely right and good and true. And the sun is blocking it out. And it's a strong sun because it's in its own house of rulership. It's Leo sun. And the the energy of this, again, to me, describes the sense of entitlement, which we have been experiencing in a really, really powerful way over the last many, many years. And we are seeing this now shifting. So there's an opposition, there's a pushback, which is the awareness now. If we think of the moon coming to uh, the awareness or the conscious phase, it's things are being highlighted, things are culminating. This is the peak of the cycle following the new moon cycle, and things are culminating in this way that we are able to see there is no justice, there is no morality, there is no right thinking, there's not even a plan. And this is something to keep in mind because this is part of this new cycle that we're going to have to work through until 2033 when we get Jupiter with Pluto again, and that will be once again in Aquarius. And that will be the next time that Jupiter and Pluto meet up in a conjunction. We had that conjunction, as I've already indicated in other videos, in 2020. So here we're in the midpoint of that conjunction in this, what you could call as a full moon phase between Pluto and Jupiter, and these power struggles and this might and right kind of struggle, and what is hidden versus what is out in the open in the lunation cycle. What are we realizing? And what's interesting about Aquarius is that it represents that ideology. And the ideology is based on what we want in the vision, our personal highest vision for life. And then in the perfect world, we align with other people who share that vision. But also if we think of visions or the ideology around things, we can also think in the lowest sense, like the Lindsey Graham version of bigotry and hate and warmongering because people are not like me. And that's also Aquarius. So I hate what is not like me. This is also Aquarius. That's the shadow side. And that certainty that I'm right is also Aquarius because there's this intellectual fixity. This is an air sign, fixed air sign, this intellectual fixity that Aquarius can also fall into, which is I know, I just know. And of course, Leo is also a fixed sign. It's a fixed fire sign. And so there's also I know, but I'm going to project it as well. So we're going to end up with some kind of a clash around this time, but also thinking of this as the a peak of a cycle that will only conclude fully, in the case of the lunation, 18 months from now with an eclipse, and at this degree point, and in the case of the Jupiter-Pluto cycle in 2033. So we're in for a ride. We're in for a bit of a moment. And I spoke about that in the previous video that I did, where I talked a little bit about the revolutionary times and how they align with with these events of the Pluto Jupiter opposition. Um, the Aquarius notion of freedom is very important. So we have the notion of my beliefs, my ideology, the vision that I have, the ideals that I hold, and coming often from a place of dissatisfaction, because we're talking about Saturn, right? Saturn is like something needs to change, something needs to be fixed. So nowadays, a lot of modern astrologers will give Uranus to rulership to Aquarius. And that can work up to a point, but it doesn't cover the whole story of Aquarius, whereas Saturn actually does, in the sense that Saturn is both the desire for reform as well as the desire for separation and something to be broken down or destroyed. It's the end of the story. It's the Lord of Karma, Lord of Time. Saturn is all about this notion of things that are born will die. Things come to an end eventually. And this is also part of Aquarius, where things need to be regenerated periodically. And society needs to be regenerated. And the ideology needs to be questioned and looked at. This is where we are, looking at these ideologies um, and looking at why we might be so blindly adhering to an ideology to the extent that we will allow war to be fought in the name of the ideology. And this would be part of the dynamic of this Mars, for example, in this tension, in this inconjunct to the lunation, and and having this this is the sesqui-square, rather, not the inconjunct type. I've been calling it an inconjunct. This is the sesqui-square. And as I said to you, a sesqui-square is a square and a half. And this is where we are between Venus and Mars. And then there's the semi-square that comes in between. So I wish I could go back. I won't be editing, so just take note of that. So just note this is a sesqui-square and not the inconjunct, as I may have said before. And in fact, that's what you see here, the little square and then the little half, the sesqui-square. And so what we're looking at here is this frustration, this feeling of things are broken and it's time to step up. It's time to show what is working, what's not working. And a lot of that energy is on the side of the transformation around the people. In a mundane chart, the moon represents the populace. It's the masses. It's the hoi polloi, the man, the man on the street, woman on the street, the they on the street. And so when we talk about Aquarius, we also have to think about my level of autonomy or my freedom within society, how I find my freedom, my role within society, and that Aquarian need for freedom, which is part of the feature of the Saturn ruled Aquarius, which is about I go my way, I do my thing, and I'm happy to step out of the collective when it's not working for me. I step back. And this is something that we're seeing, and even the almost most sound asleep people are noticing. We don't even have that choice to step out and step away when we don't like what's going on socially. And this is why I think, in terms of the freedom of Aquarius, as it represents air, it's an air sign representing communication and how we connect with each other. That is not necessarily in the material realm. And then, of course, we look at the technocracies that are dominating our lives, the ways that we're being forced into um, basically online prison. We're being forced into a pattern of adherence to something that we never fully consciously agreed to. We did agree because we keep clicking, yes, I agree to the terms and conditions without ever reading them. And God bless the people who've ever bothered to read them so that they could digest them and share what they represent. And they're pretty ugly, those terms and conditions. And yet we want to use the thing. We're addicted to the thing, right? So that social media or that smartphone or that banking app, or the fact that you can pay your taxes online and you don't have to queue up like you did before in the government office for 6 hours of your working day. All these conveniences have put us into this kind of sleepwalking into prison. And this is where we are. We're here now. And we don't really have the option to opt out. If you are watching this video, you have not opted out. So don't tell me in the comments how you've opted out. Because if you're off grid, you really have to go fully off grid. And even in other countries, I don't know about all countries, but there are many countries where that's illegal. It's illegal to go off grid. I already saw that in many US states. I've seen that in many European countries. You have to struggle to actually go off grid and decide I'm going to draw my own water and I'm going to, generate my own electricity and I'm going to live my own life. And and so this is very important because then I come back to Ceres, which is how do I nourish myself or how do we nourish ourselves? Recently in France, for example, there's a very strong movement over the last few years of farmers who want to reclaim the ability to live on the land that they till or the land that they cultivate for cattle or whatever. Believe it or not, this is actually considered to be a radical act, an antisocial act for a farmer to want to live on the land that they cultivate. And that's how far we've come from actual health-based agriculture. We've got so far since the Second World War into the big ag and the highly polluting type of mass agriculture where there's big huge plots of land the size of countries where you can only cross it by plane or by heavy machinery, and they're so polluted and they're actually unsafe for humans to live nearby. And that has become the norm. And these people are trying to advocate for the right to actually live on the land. Can you believe we're at this point? And I think many of us don't realize that because if we look at the television shows or the movies or the things that we romance about, we have this idea, the ideal, the Aquarian ideal of the farmer, the one who had the homestead, the one who was the pioneer, the one who is the one who's been cultivating the same grapevines for centuries based on generations of input. And we look at that and we think that's the norm, right? And not at all. And so this is where we are, where the question is, what is my freedom? Where am I allowed any freedom in this society? Now, the Aquarian version of freedom is not the same kind of freedom as Sagittarius. So Sagittarius also carries the signature of wanting freedom, but Sagittarius wants the freedom to explore. It wants the freedom to have more and have options, have a few pieces on the side, have lots of things available to it. I want the freedom to grow, to thrive, to expand. The Aquarian freedom is like, leave me alone. I want my space. I want to be in this way of living and I just want to do my thing. And this is where we are. It's coming to a head right now. And when I say right now, these 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius are bringing it to a head. So there'll be several peak moments throughout this cycle. And we'll see, for example, next November 2027, when the North Node and Pluto come together, that will be another peak in this cycle. But in the meantime, we're looking at this as a background theme for our times. And in that theme, we have this configuration, right? This boat, this cradle, this basket, whatever you want to call it, this configuration, which pulls all of these different, anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees, 6 degrees of these signs being activated in in the same time, in the same way, and again year after year after year. And I've already done a video on that. If you want to look at the barbell basket and the way that I interpreted that, this is still up on my channel. It's one of my more recent videos. It's nothing's coming to rescue us. And this is the thing I want you to understand. These formations are talking about things that are going to persist. What is going to persist? So what is going to persist is what is already in motion. It's not something brand new. It's not Santa Claus arriving to save the day. It's not, I don't know, from whatever galaxy that's going to arrive and save the day. Pity us humans for being so stupid and naive, and look, let's save them from themselves. Stop it. Like, this is really, these are times where we have to recognize in that good Saturnian way. Saturn is here in Aries, remember, we've got to master ourselves. We've got to take responsibility for ourselves. And it's this Saturn that is ruling the lunation. What are we going to do about this? We're realizing this whole story of what is available to us. What are my freedoms? How can I operate from my beliefs within the context of society and allow others to operate from their own beliefs without that shadow aspect of Aquarius, which is part of the imposition of groupthink or cult programming, which is also Aquarius. The cult programming, which means that when you hear the word communism or socialism, you suddenly get triggered and foam at the mouth, and it's like, democracy, it's all about democracy, or this republic and my freedoms and all these things. They're only words that have been programmed into the mind of many people to stop you asking questions and looking at what is the reality of the situation. And so you identify with these words in this Pavlovian way, and you get a response without understanding. And this is the Aquarian certainty, the fixed air certainty of the ideology. This is what I believe. This is what is true. Again, I briefly mentioned Lindsey Graham because he just recently passed. And that man has been, in his short, less than a quarter of a century of a career, responsible for the lives of millions of people being destroyed, if not completely, obliterating cultures and countries on the way. Was gleeful about destruction and death, and based on ideology, based on his bigotry, all with his cute southern drawl. You could almost imagine him out back whipping the slaves. He's a very, very good example of how bad we can get into our own sense of what is true and what is not true when we don't stop and think about it. And with the Aquarius full moon, it's going to be in our face. What is going on? What are we looking at here? What is actually happening in the name of what ideology? Um, And so that Aquarian liberty, the freedom, the desire to be myself, to get on with my life, leave me alone, let me do my thing and not be judged for it, not be boxed in. And again, these are the shadow sides of Aquarius that we need to look at. The moon is, and this whole time of Pluto is illuminating, is bringing to the fore the shadow. With Pluto in Capricorn, we saw the shadow side of the government and the agencies and organizations that were the structures of our society up until this point. We saw it really front and center. And now we're seeing the shadow side of social control and the social contract and the social political structure. And this is what falls apart, especially when Pluto goes into Aquarius each time. The frame of reference of how we are governed is falling apart. And that requires a good look at ourselves and the way that we are operating with each other as well, because this is us being part of the collective, right? So the equals, being one amongst many equals, the égalité, fraternité, liberté. This is the notion of freedom, the notion of being the same, the notion of being just like the other person, not better. The Leo notion is I'm better, I'm superior, I have the capacity to do something different and move in a direction that is uniquely mine because I stand alone. Where the Aquarian energy is, yes, I want to stand alone, but I know that we are also in this together and we have to stand alone with what is good for everyone. And otherwise, we fight amongst ourselves. Um, so this is really important, understanding our ideology and understanding where we're programmed to react based on propaganda, which is also Aquarian. And this is especially true of the sextile, the 60-degree aspect between Pluto and Neptune, which has been a signature since the Second World War and continues for another 10 years or so as a signature representing things like propaganda and how we are being controlled, how we're being programmed, nudged in one direction or another, and programmed to believe things. So when you hear the word Democrat or Republican, you start rolling around on the floor, frothing at the mouth. And this is the important thing to understand that those triggers are deliberate. That's not you that's chosen that. You haven't done enough thinking. And this is the good side of Aquarius, which says, wait a minute, hang on, let me think about this. Let me reflect on this. Let me reflect on what this represents for my role in society, how I'm participating in all of this. So that techno-feudalism, this whole business of centralized control, and when I say centralized control, we're getting even beyond national centralization. This is transnational, and this is what Pluto in Capricorn started, the transnational corporation, the transnational power that has been augmented in the last, well, let's say up until 2023 when Pluto started moving into Aquarius, but starting in the end of 2007, which by the way mirrors the ingress of the nodal axis with the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo. So that was again tied into financial difficulties, financial cycles being extremely difficult. And that was when even Obama, the Hopi Feely guy, uh, he was the one who allowed the banks uh, completely off the hook for having completely destroyed the lives of millions of people, and including around the world. And yet still, people treat him like he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so this is again where ideology blinds people to what is actually happening. Noticing that this notion of us and them is a trick of dividing and separating, dividing and conquering, and dividing and ruling in the oldest playbook, in the oldest trick in the book, to get people to fight amongst themselves so they don't see the nefarious nature of the rulership. Now, here we have to look at that with this Aquarius full moon. So this signature here. Um, I cannot interpret that as something that is necessarily positive because of the influence of everything else. The pressure is intense. Jupiter is invisible. We're not seeing Jupiter when it's in this dynamic. And so Jupiter is the thing that is being shunted to the background or is not yet able to shine. So we will only be able to see Jupiter when the sun moves well away at least 12 degrees away from Jupiter. So we're well into August by that point. And that will be, I think, by the end of August eclipse, the 28th. That's the next full moon cycle that we will see, but that takes the sun into Virgo at that point. And of course, I'm going to do a video on this. I needed to get this video out of the way before I could do the eclipse videos. Those are the ones that I'm really excited about in terms of delineation. All right, so let me have a look here at the lunar families for you. So I'll give you a few dates, and I'm going to put these in the description box below, as always. And you can look at these cycles, and of course, globally, we can look at these cycles, and you can look at them in your own lives. And the way that you might use them is as a planning tool, if you're going forward in time, or reviewing what's already happening, and then trying to understand how this theme is tying into that. It's already happened, and therefore you have this understanding of what is the culmination all about? And where am I then moving away from this thing that I've realized? And now I need to adjust my behavior. Now I need to move in a different direction. So this whole cycle of this particular lunation, which is exact on the 29th of July, 1635 is universal time. Actually, I put Uccle, Belgium. It's not exactly what I meant to do. I was just doing that for a natal chart earlier. Usually what I do is I put Greenwich. There we go. Let's calculate that again. All right, so here we go. So this is illumination based on Greenwich Mean Time, or the Universal Time, 29th of July, 1635. And this is a whole sign chart. I think it's easier for you to interpret if you're especially not familiar with astrology. Just go sign by sign. One house means one sign. If you're familiar with astrology and you use Placidus, then you go ahead, but it will also potentially throw things off in terms of the way I delineate sign by sign. Let's come back to the dates then here. So the actual full moon that we're having started from a cycle that began with the Aquarius New Moon on the 29th of January, 2025. And that was at 9 degrees, 51 arc minutes of Aquarius. And that was itself the closing off of a previous 3-year cycle that would have begun in 2022. Then the first quarter of this is when the moon comes to the quarter phase. It gets to the same degree, even though the sun is squaring the moon. That's the first, or the opening square. And that was on 29 October 2025, so last year, at again 6 degrees 30 arc minutes. And that was a crisis of action. That's when you realize from the new moon point that happened the end of January 2025, oh, I need to adjust. I need to do this new thing. I need to find a new way forward to get to the place that I'm trying to go. And that's a need to commit to the action that will take you to this place. And then we get to today, this full moon, or at least the full moon on the 29th of July at 6 degrees 30 minutes of Aquarius. This is the awareness of the cycle that began there in January 2025. Then the third quarter, or the closing square of this lunation, will be on the 28th of April 2027, so next year. And that is at 8 degrees and 19 arc minutes of Aquarius. And that's the crisis of consciousness. So these are the terms that Dane Rudyard gave to the phases of the moon and the opposition square, etc. He gave in an interpretation of our awareness, using the moon as a reference for the mind. The moon represents our mind and our body-mind complex and our awareness of internal understanding, our internal experience of life. And so this is the crisis of consciousness. It's our evaluation of events, what's going on based on what we realized. And then what are we going to do as course correction to be able to release this cycle and move into a new one? So this is where we are as of the 28th of April next year, 2027. And then we have the end of this cycle, which will be the beginning of the following lunar cycle, which is a solar eclipse. And that's the Aquarius New Moon on the 26th of January, 2028. So that's at 6 degrees 11 arc minutes. So same basic degree point here. And so if you have anything in your chart that is really, let's call it from 2 till about 10 degrees of Aquarius, because the moon moves quite quickly, I think it's worth looking at. And even if you give it the first decan of Aquarius, the first 10 degrees of Aquarius, you could say that's a very interesting impact on your life. And of course, it will be more noticeable the closer you get to that 6-degree point. And that is, again, something to notice in terms of the bigger picture of this time. I just realized I pulled in. I'm going to just find this again because um, something changed here, and I'm noticing that the moon degree is wrong. So I just want to make sure that it's correct for our. Um, oh, no, there we go. So there we go. Let's do it this way. This is no, it brings me back to the same place. Sorry, I'm just going to go back to. We're going to keep it here. Never mind. I want to keep it here because I want to keep the degree. So you'll just be seeing it from the Belgian perspective. Because I lost the degree, now I realize that we're in Central European time. I normally keep it at universal time, but you do the math. So 6 hours to back to New York, 6 hours ahead to Japan. Now 6 hours ahead to Singapore. Um, so here we are with this story lining up 18 months back and 18 months forward. You can see how this peak moment is going to inform you of something that is going to take you to a place that will then be quite game changing because 18 months from now, that is an eclipse. And that means that there's going to be something significant that happens globally speaking as well as personally speaking. So just pay attention to that degree point as well as the cycle. I wanted to pull in the what is called the Americans called it epic fury, which I mean, there's just so many gems of how to epic failure. Epstein fury is my current favorite. So this is when Israel and the United States basically brought a knife to a gunfight, and they had no idea. They underestimated Iran in such a way that at this time, which was the 28th of February, we had Mars at the point of the 17th of February eclipse. Remember that those eclipses get triggered when planets come back to those points. And that's why I'm emphasizing this moon, because it will be triggered. It will be a beginning of a cycle that is triggering at the eclipse of what did I say, January 2028. And here what we have is the North Node coming back over that Mars point, now really triggering both the February eclipse as well as this Mars that was part of the degree point of the eclipse, although Mars was earlier on in the sign. And here we have Pluto almost at the same place. It's moving back retrograde where it was direct at 4 degrees, 30 arc minutes. And Pluto and now Juno are conjoining that Pluto of this time. So it's coming back to meet that story. And remember, as I mentioned, Pluto conjoining Altair has been the story of, I'm going to just call it war with its neighbors, Israeli war with its neighbors. And when we say Israeli war, we have to also interpret that as U.S. because Israel exists entirely because of its backing by the United States. And so here at the Aquarius full moon, we have a lot of triggers for that event. What I'm saying here is that this, for me, represents something of a continuation, an exaggeration, or an event that will be expanded on, so there's going to be something here that is actually it's going to be a longer story, and at the very least it's going to be a story that continues into the next 18 months, and then we'll see the results at that eclipse point of the lunation 6.5 degree point. So we can think about these in terms of longer term arcs of the vision. This is, I guess, like a quagmire kind of development for the US. It's not going to be over anytime soon. At this lunation, we have this square from Mars to Venus and a retrograde Mercury, conjunct Venus, in opposition to Venus. So Venus is now in her opposition cycle based on that February action. That action, by the way, was 10 in the morning Tehran time on the 28th of February. And here we have a T-square now that Mars is in a T-square. Ceres is also participating in this T-square in relatively close degrees, within 3 degrees, which is significant. It's something to pay attention to when something is within 3 degrees. And of course, Ceres is about what resources we have at our disposal. It's even agriculture, and part of the closing of the Straits of Hormuz is also the reason why fuel prices are rising, and problems with fertilizer. The US is going to have a huge problem of fertilizer, huge shortage. This year it's going to manage, and next year that will show up. And why that matters is because we have this bigger story with the United States. If we take the US, I've got it here somewhere. There we go. We'll put the US in the place of Epstein Fury. I say Epstein Fury, and that's not my term, but it's worth mentioning that when everything became known about Epstein or Epstein, and his this incredible network, which, by the way, Whitney Webb years ago already brought to the fore in her books, One Nation Under Blackmail, volumes 1 and 2. Read volume 2 if you don't have the time, because there's 600 pages each. Volume 2 will bring you up to date to now, and why everything is linked, including Iran, is linked back to these financial shenanigans, which is all about skimming off the top, basically. So I leave you to do the homework. But the point being that now what we're looking at with this lunation, given that we see that it also is triggering this war, which will perpetuate, we're seeing how the United States chart, I do use the Sibley chart because it does really give me a lot of, it just highlights so many events uh, so consistently. Um, with its ascendant and midheaven and all of the other placements speaking so loudly to events, especially that was where Pluto was, by the way, when we had 9/11, Pluto was on the ascendant, Saturn was on the descendant of the US chart. So things like that are incredibly powerful. And here what we find is that the North Node is on the point of the moon. Now, already we saw in February that was where the new moon was, or the eclipse, the solar eclipse of February 17th. Then Mars moved into that point on the 28th of February when Israel and the US attacked Iran on that morning, killed their leader, killed a number of the inside circle, and started the war that continues now. And here we are back again. So since the 7th of July, just shortly after the Mars and Uranus conjunction square the nodes, the US once again attacked Iran. The story is that Iran attacked. It's not true. If you look at the independent media, they will tell you very clearly what was going on. And the US and Israel attacked during the funeral of the Ayatollah Khamenei. And that is also something that they do very often. They will take big events and the people are distracted, and then they will use those events to do other things. And this is also why Epstein Fury is a better name for this whole thing, because this war was meant to distract from that Epstein file. And they thought it would be sort of a short-term distraction, but they've got themselves quite literally into a long-term mess. And one of the reasons I know that is because, as I mentioned before, these outer planets tell us something long-term is happening and long-term is changing. This is a dynamic here where we're speaking directly to the nodal axis, the nodes of fate, the karmic nodes, which, whenever triggered, are going to bring things that are significant, impactful, and game-changing. And this lunation is where it's a trigger, let's call it an introduction to Pluto moving over that degree next year, and where all of the outer planets will be in this same alignment of a minor grand trine at 6 degrees and no longer at 4 degrees. So this matters for the United States in a very big way. What is changing is the image of the United States, not just with reference to the world, because that has been changing, I think, for many, many years already. Well, I think since the Pluto return of the United States, that was already Pluto in Capricorn, where the whole world has stopped being polite about the US, basically. And now the game has changed permanently as we move into Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto is starting to impact the third house, which is borders, United States borders, agreements, trade, the internal borders of the United States, including like the states and how they line up with each other, and the people, the everyday life of the people. And this is where we find the US moon representing the people. And it's this moon that's being triggered. And again, since February, what I find extraordinary about these times is that for probably the first time in almost, I could say easily 40 years of studying America, politics, global geopolitics, and so on, I have seen Americans in a general sense, not just a pocket of Americans, but in a general sense, questioning what they're actually doing, where the vast majority of Americans never knew what was going on outside of their borders, couldn't care less as long as they had their whatever, Disneyland or whatever. Now they're starting to notice, oh, wait, we're doing this. And now what is coming is the recognition, the self-awareness, and it's all landing here on the people, how this is impacting us, because now it's starting to get painful for the people of the United States. It was easy when war was exported, when it was never coming home, but it's coming home increasingly so. And people are going to start to notice. And this will be what comes forward in January 2028 at that eclipse. This will be highlighted again because we're going to come back to these times when that eclipse is on the south node of the United States chart. And we'll also have Chiron in a square to that. So very, very important times. And this is the Mars return every 2 years. Mars comes back to this point in the chart. So that's not exceptional, except that this is coming now with Uranus in the same sign. And this is what's new about that. Mars and Uranus were conjoined on the 3rd and 4th of July in a square to the nodal axis. And then as a result of that, we, again, 3 days later, had the US going back to war. And again, this is the trigger, historically, sadly, the trigger for major war, and not just minor, the usual sort of shenanigans that are ongoing around the world, but this is major war. And this will be a game changer. And because we're looking at this repeating pattern, I suspect that this will not find any resolution, if it does, until 2033 or even 2034, when Uranus is finally out of the seventh house, or out of the house of the open enemy of the United States, the house of relating to the other, when this cycle will come to an end. So all of these cycles will be places to check in and say, like, how are we doing here? Mars is squaring the Neptune of the United States, where we have the midheaven and Venus of the lunation chart on this Neptune. Neptune is in the house of the leader or the government or the way that people see the leadership of the United States, and it's Neptunian. It's Camelot. It's all like this heroic image of something. Never has been true. It's never been. Neptune represents things that are not there. I could say the leadership is not the one you're looking at. That's one way of looking at it. Where do we find that? You see the sun in the eighth house of secrets. The leaders are in the house of shared resources. This is why I think the Sibley chart is so incredibly compelling. Anyway, I've done a lot of work looking at the US chart. I've done it in other videos, especially when Pluto ingressed in 2024. You can find a video of me looking at the US chart and seeing how that will influence the United States and see if it still lines up today. And so here we do have something that will be very loudly triggering the United States. A few other things that are coming up. Think of, I put a bunch of things here. India is one. India is being stimulated by this. It's not as impactful, but it's definitely worth noting. India has a Sun and Venus conjunction in Aquarius at these degrees. So there's something about India that will be highly impacted around this cycle. And then again, keep in mind that this whole cycle is about the conclusion at a solar eclipse that's coming down the 29th. What did we say? The 28th of January, 2028, or was it the 25th? Sorry, I'll put it in the notes underneath. So India definitely is being impacted by this as well. How will that impact them? Well, again, something to do with leadership, because we're looking at the sun representing leaders, and this can be an expression of that as well for India. So the other one that I thought was interesting, and you can look at figures like, famous figures. Barack Obama's chart is being impacted. People like Sam Altman is being impacted. Donald Trump, I'm not going there. Donald Trump's chart is being impacted. King Charles III, his chart is being impacted. He's been, for the last couple of months, since his chart has started to be really triggered, in a tense square, intense energy. He's been called out for a lot of lying, cheating, even his own younger brother, Prince Edward, who I think is now called the Duke of Edinburgh. And this palace intrigue has been really a disgrace, and it's now affecting King Charles. Look, it's right on his ascendant. There's an awareness here of how people are not on his side. It's squaring the nodal axis for him, squaring the Mercury. He's got this Mercury duplicitousness, secret cagey energy of Mercury. And again, this is something that is being triggered. So we can find for sure some kind of change in the status of King Charles. Um, you have all the sex and drugs and rock and roll crowd as well. You have you can look at um, like the chart of Richards, or most especially Mick Jagger, for example, people like that. I said Sam Altman. I'll just pull that up. He's really been called in for a very long time already. Um, you will see this configuration squaring his Pluto, squaring his Sun. And this is something, again, that is an ongoing story for him. It'll pick up steam as we go forward in the next year and a half. And that will be where all of these things start to get highlighted in a way that makes him uncomfortable, if not downright sort of persona non grata. And then, of course, he's the person that started ChatGPT, he's the one who picked up ChatGPT, um, and has been known as a pathological liar throughout his career. And so these are the places that are being triggered, and that will all come through. And I do think it'll come through this summer. I think we will find this summer that this lunation is picking up on a bunch of things that actually will be the beginning of the end of this AI bubble. We've seen that China has done a better job and cheaper than all of these incredibly over bloated American versions of AI, which are very costly to Americans because they're costing them not only their electricity, local electricity, but also they're paying for them in one way or another. So all of that to say, it's going to be tense. It's not easy. I know people don't like to say that. People rage quit. They unsubscribe loudly in the comments when I say things that they don't like because they want to hear that Santa Claus version of life. And you can create that Santa Claus version of life for yourself. But collectively, we have something that we have to deal with, and it's worth knowing about it and worth, dealing with it. It's worth recognizing that there's part of your life that you have to take responsibility for and not think that everything's always happening to you. So let me go forward in time till we get Aries on this ascendant here. And we're going to start with Aries at this full moon. And so this, again, it's quite an intense energy of the full moon here for Aries. It's coming into your 11th house. And this is really about how you connect to society. And I've said so much about these different configurations over the last few weeks that I'm not going to dwell on it. But just to say, your vision for how you fit into society, how you fit into the bigger picture of what life is all about in your future, your vision for the future, it matters a lot. It's a very significant thing. And this lunation is being ruled by Saturn in your first house of self. So there's something that you need to redress to get to this place of how you fit into society. You need to maybe take more responsibility for yourself as a citizen, or in regards to your vision, in regards to your dream. Are you setting yourself up in a way that is, focused and directed? Because what can happen with Aries is that you get really excited about things and then you drop the ball. So here with Saturn, it's saying, no, persist. This needs to be long term. And that's especially true because of the nodal axis here for a year and a half in your 11th house. And you go to one of my more recent videos, you can find the whole story of the nodal axis for you. But just notice that. And of course, your ruler is ruling this Saturn from the third house. It's about willpower, choice, deciding how you connect with people, how you communicate that, how you're doing business, if that's the story, how you're generating something based on your thinking, based on the way that you want to participate. And this is huge because it will impact relationships, not only on the social level, but on your interpersonal level as well. If this is about a sibling, an elder sibling or any siblings, then this would be something that would require you to take responsibility for some aspect of that, or to dissociate or differentiate yourself from that. And that would be something that you would know in your own life, or that would be demonstrated in your natal chart. So that's not necessarily true for everyone. It's just that if that eventuality is there, it's about standing in your own, on your own 2 feet, in your own um, power, as it were. But there can be some agitation around extended family or siblings. So notice that. And this can be, again, with reference to the resources question of Sarah's, there may be some dispute that is about resources. It's about what you are gaining or losing in terms of a relationship, some kind of dynamic through friendship or a sibling relationship. All right, Aries, I'll leave it at that, and I will see you in the next video. And so for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this lunation is happening in your 10th house. It's all about a reflection of your social status, your career, or your personal goals, your personal ambitions, the legacy that you want to leave. And this can be with reference to the past 18 months, or it can be in a general sense in your life. It's a pretty big deal at this particular full moon, because you're looking at something that includes the North Node and Pluto, as well as Juno and Altair, that is in the mix. And so listen to the introduction to find out how the degrees are lining up in this lunation, but also how it all is emphasized, let's say, with this Pluto and Altair and the Juno. There's something here about what you have. You recognize your role within the family, within the marriage, within the company, within the hierarchy, and you're seeing the impact, or you're seeing how you feel impacted by that role or by the way you've been showing up. Is that still working for you? With Chiron in your first house, there may be a need to question how you've been showing up in terms of your value, undervaluing yourself, underestimating, overestimating, for that matter. It's possible. We have Venus, your ruler, in the 5th house of self-expression, and there's some level of dissatisfaction around that, or there's some level of something that feels like, I want to improve on this, I want to change this. And so that can be quite motivating. It's squaring Mars in your 2nd house, which is ruling the Saturn, which is in your 12th house. So you're restructuring something about the way that you're dealing with yourself in terms of your unconscious processes, or the things, the behaviors that might be needing questioning, needing structuring to get you where you want to go, or to find a deeper level of satisfaction for yourself. The Uranus, Mars, and then Ceres in your 2nd house has you thinking a lot about resources, a lot about how you use money. This is also the house of family. So again, potentially how that is all being configured within the context of the family, what's coming at you, what you're providing. Most likely it's you doing the providing at this particular juncture. And then you might be noticing that too. How does that impact you, or how are you showing up in that sense? Is that working for you or not? Is this about if it's about your marital status, then we've got Mars ruling the house of relationship, or let's say even a business partnership, in the house of values and money. So that would be the thing to clear up. Is this about how we're maybe how there's a misalignment around those things that needs to it's coming to a head. You're understanding something about this in this time. So quite a key moment. And I don't think about this in terms of fame. This is never about that. It may, in some rare instances, be about fame. It's much more about how you recognize your role out in the world. And everyone has a worldly role, even if you are reclusive. Your worldly role is to be the recluse. So notice that. What are you doing about that? How are you doing that? Is that working for you? How is that impacting other people? This is that. So again, when people in the comments saying, no, I never leave the house, or I'm retired, or whatever, yeah, you're still a participant. You don't get to check out just because you watch TV all day. You're still a participant in society, and this is showing you how. And when you remember that, when you come to that acknowledgement, then you can also look at that and say, is this the legacy that I want to leave behind? Is this the way I want to participate in the world? Is this the life that I thought I would be leading? And in this phase is where you can observe that, see the consequences, and make any changes that you want going forward. With Venus in the 5th house, it's very fortunate, very helpful. You see where things need tweaking, and you can go through that place of expressing yourself differently. And that's very much the Venus in the 5th ruling your first. All right, Taurus, I'll see you in the next video. And so for Gemini, you're a busy little beaver as well, Gemini, with this Uranus and Mars and Ceres in your house of self, and then all of that trining, of course, back to Pluto, which is itself in this conjunction with Juno and Altair at the time of the lunation. So remember, the lunation is at 6.5 degrees. We're just moving the dial, and that's why it keeps changing. So it is still very much the full moon, and it was on the 29th of July. Let me just clear this off as well, because I want to get that. It's interesting that the midheaven is there. However, it's not really entirely accurate in terms of what I want to get across here. So just clear the decks here a little bit. So what we have here for you is a very busy ninth house of your vision. What am I here for? What is life representing? What is my relationship to justice? That's the ninth house too. It's about justice and legal systems. It's about philosophy of life. Like, what is my philosophy of life? How do I guide myself forward in life? What is my faith? How do I see my higher purpose? This is the first, fifth, and ninth houses are the houses of Dharma. This is erroneously translated as religion in some texts. Dharma is our sense of purpose. We're here for a reason. We're here because there's something that we're contributing that we can do in our unique way. Dharma is also the law of nature or the law of the cosmos, the universal law that applies to all of us. And that means that if we're operating from this law, like one of the basics is like in a Western way of looking at it, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or don't do it to others in the way that you don't want people to do it to you. And it's so basic, it's so fundamental, it's so absolutely crystal clear that it's known as dharma. So it's not like don't park here between 9 and 5. Those are human laws. This is essential law, and this is the ninth house. And what are you realizing about that? What are you realizing about the essence of your life? What are you realizing about the way that you're stepping up into life? This can also have to do with teachers, fathers, counselors, guides, mediators, even yourself in that role, and all of those things that you might want to learn more of or get more information from or find counseling from. This is going to be a huge moment in time because really for the whole cycle of the nodal axis, this repeats the cycle of this lunation. And so this is going to be a major topic for you for all of these 18 months to come. And if we think about this in terms of you taking action because of that Mars and Uranus in your first house, you're stepping up differently into life. And maybe this becomes more urgent to you. You have the Sun and Jupiter in your third house. Jupiter is not visible. We're not seeing Jupiter at this point. So the guidance may not be clear, or it may be a sense of, okay, well, I have an inkling of what I want, just not quite sure how to go forward with that. And as the Sun moves through the third house, as Jupiter itself takes its own journey through the third house, pardon me, you'll have a lot more of a sense of what action to take, what goals you want in terms of the everyday, like the practical steps to take. And then your ruler, Mercury, is now out of its retrograde cycle. It's not out of the shadow. It's still in the shadow phase until about the 6th or 7th of August, but it's now slowly moving direct. It's very, very slow at this point. And so this is another way of saying you've got time. You've got time to reflect. Things may not work in a way that is, instantaneously going to be clear for you, but the awareness will be there. Or something will happen that brings attention to the thing that means a lot to you. It could be international connections with people, or something that happens through a foreigner, somebody abroad, or some situation abroad that you're realizing has an impact on you. And then Saturn, of course, ruling this lunation from the 11th house. This is, again, bringing your attention to your role through acquaintances, through networks, through friends of like a casual nature, or friends who share ideas with you, or hobbies, or things that you do. Not not your bosom buddies, as that were like that's more like the third house, seventh house kind of friendships. It can also be your vision, to getting serious about this through a new vision for what you're alive for. I've been saying this for quite some time. And this is a continuation of that theme. All right, so make the most of this, Gemini, and I'll see you in the next video. And for Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, of course, the lunation is always important for you because the moon is your ruler. And here the moon is in the 8th house, along with the North Node and Pluto and Juno. The 8th house is all about things that may be revealed through loss or crisis, a knowledge of something that can be, may have been a secret, something that's not necessarily known. And that can be family secrets, or it can be things that are sorry, psychologically kind of filtering through. It's around fears, for example, issues around intimacy, how we bond with people. In what way is that working for us or not? Is that working based on values? Because this is the 2nd house and 8th house axis, which is about values, the axis of money as well. The dynamic here also includes the Uranus in the 12th. So with Mars also in the 12th, there's a lot of thought that is coming through things that may not be evident at this time, or they may be coming through things that are you're still processing unconsciously, trying to figure it out. Going back to issues maybe through, filtering through memories, filtering through these awarenesses of things that have passed or are coming from the past. The 8th house is known as the house of transformation, but that comes through crisis. So it's not like we sit around and go, yay, we're transforming. It's like, no, there's a crisis and I must transform, or it has transformed me. And this can also be a realization of the impact of that. The sun rules your 2nd house with Jupiter and the South Node. There's a lot of information here telling me this a lot about contracts around money, engagements with people that may be about exchanges of money or exchanges of value in some way. And these are houses of intimacy, as I mentioned, including sexual intimacy as well. There may be something here about a romantic story. In a woman's chart, both Jupiter and even the sun represent men, the man or men in the life of a person, or the spouse, let's say, spouse type relationship. So this could be something that is there if you're married or if you're in a committed relationship. A need to review that commitment, a need to look at that from a place, and this has been ongoing for months now, but it's really highlighted at this lunation. A need to review the commitment, a need to review what it means to be committed, what is the cost to you or the other person? Is that working for you? So we also have this Saturn in your 10th ruling this 8th house, and it rules your relationship sector as well. Pardon me. And Saturn is asking you to step up in your life and become more serious or take more responsibility for your personal ambition, perhaps for your role within the family, perhaps for your role within the couple, if you're in an unestablished couple. Again, maybe a contemplation around the status of your couple. A need to redefine it. This doesn't have to, I'm not suggesting this has to mean divorce or anything. This can also be a marriage that's coming through. It can be something like, oh, wow, look at this. We're really connecting here. Let's make something lasting. Saturn is very strong. It's retrograde now, but it's at the degree of its retrogradation. So for the past 2 weeks, basically, it's been at this degree. And it will continue for most of August to stay really tightly here, very, very slow moving at this point. And so there's something here that really needs your attention around this time, and it's being highlighted by this moon. Mercury is also stationary direct, so it has completed its retrograde station, and a few days before the lunation, which was the 29th of July, at 6 degrees, Mercury, I think it's stationed on the 24th of July, and that was at almost 17 degrees. So it's very, very close still to the degree of its station at the time of the lunation. Here it's moved forward, but it was at 17 degrees at the time of the lunation. So there's a lot that you have been mulling over with reference to you, your role in the family, your role in terms of your role as a nurturer, in the dynamic of your relationships in general, but also intimate relationships or family responsibilities. And of course, your career. For those who are still working, this is also about income, new sources of income or ways of discovering how to organize your finances, issues around taxation or passive income. Um, so many options, so many potentials. Um, yeah, I think that's covering it. And I have done so many videos on this. And sometimes I think, have I already said that? So anyway, let's leave it at that, Cancer. I will be back because we have eclipses coming up and this starts to get very exciting. So we're going to jump on those eclipses in the next video and I'll see you then. And so, Leo, of course, this is impactful for you because the sun is involved in a full moon. It's the sun that illuminates the moon by opposition. And so the moon is standing across the way from your sign. And what we have here, perhaps what I'm going to do is actually flip it back a day just so that we can we'll put the moon in the very, oh, isn't that boring? Yes, I forgot it does that. Hang on. All right, let's do it this way, Leo. I just want to, it's just easier. I'm going to just put you back on the hot seat, but from the day before, so that we're still on the day. All right, there we go. So the moon is, of course, at 6 degrees. And here we have it in conjunction with Pluto and Juno in your house of relationships. So here you're having a stark realization about you and relationships. There's somebody in your life that you're realizing something about, or a way of being in relationships that you're becoming aware of. There can be something about the imbalance in a relationship that needs addressing, especially because we're looking at this polarity here. Jupiter with the sun, and especially as the South Node is now in your first house, there may be something here where you are becoming aware of where you are either over asking or under appreciating the relationship that you have, or find whatever the imbalance is, you will know, you will understand it, because this is you're becoming aware of it. This is part of the signature of becoming aware of this, needing this relationship to be balanced out in a better way. You may be discovering Pluto reveals things as well. You may be discovering something about a partner or about the quality of the relationship, and it's new. It's you're seeing something maybe that it was there all this time, but you're seeing it now with your eyes wide open. And with the North Node here, that emphasizes that point. You're seeing relationships in a different way, or there's new people coming in that bring you a new way of being because of that influence. And of course, this is part of the dynamic of you changing over this year and a half as part of this whole big story. Listen to the introduction because I think it can be really pertinent to you. And then also make sure you listen to I think my previous video to this one was about the nodal axis, and that is really pertinent to you with the South Node going in there. And of course, Saturn is in your ninth house of your vision for your life, of your connection to, or your feeling of not getting support from father figures, teachers, counselors, guides, whatever, legal counsel, whatever. There may be a feeling of, wow, I have to figure this out. I have to do this on my own in some way. You need to take responsibility for it. It's not forthcoming. And this can also be the realization. Have I got the right team with me? Have I got the right person sitting across from me? Have I got anybody sitting across from me? This could be another question. And then that would be the question is, again, what is that costing me? What is the impact on my life? How am I seeing the person that I'm relating to, or the quality of relationship, maybe for the first time? And what does that do to me? And is this something I need to move away from, or is this something I need to invest in? This will be quite a key period for you, Leo, for really look at this for the next year and a half. And I would even say 4.5 years, because you're going to have this cycle ending with a lunar eclipse at this degree point, a solar eclipse at this degree point in your seventh house. 6 degrees solar eclipse, the end of January 2028. And we will still have the nodes there. So it'll be a tight eclipse, a total solar eclipse. And then that will start a new 3-year cycle. which will repeat this sort of theme. So we're working on this for quite some time. So this is an opportunity for you to really get that clarity of where do I lose myself in relationship, or what is the cost to me of this relationship? Um, Bottom line, is it working for me? Is my way of relating working? And am I wasting my time with certain people, or certainly a certain way of being in relationship? All right. So enjoy this season. This is your season. So, one of the things about Leo is that when there's an imbalance in Leo, often through an insecurity, there's too much of a sense of needing attention. There's a neediness. And when you are in your power, when you're happy in your skin as a Leo, you have no neediness. You have a sense of fullness. And it's that effulgence that allows you to radiate. So you get people gravitating around you, this literally in that solar way, because of what you are and who you are. And I will talk a lot more about that in the Leo eclipse video coming up. So notice that the neediness requires you to pull people into your orbit. The sun has no need for that. The sun just knows I'm here. Pay attention. And when you're coming from your heart and when you're coming from this place of sincerity, you will also, the right people will be there in your orbit, and the others you won't notice. Not necessary. And it's not about hierarchy or superiority. It's about recognizing this is working for me. This is working for me, and therefore I'm able to be there for other people. You see? So rather than a quid pro quo, it's just that sense of this is what I'm here for. And I think this is where you're going to get that lesson. And again, it's an extended lesson. It's a big one. All right, Leo, I'll see you in the next video. Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is in your house of everyday work, your health and healing, your schedule, how you operate through like the way that you support yourself with everyday activities, with everyday routines, how you overcome difficulties and obstacles and going through things that you need to deal with. And this will be a realization around all of those things. What are you giving at work? What are you receiving from work? Your ruler is now direct, so Mercury is in the 11th house of gains and the vision that you have for your future, the sense of what the future holds for you. And that has been a long Mercury cycle of 2 months because pretty much June and July, Mercury was retrograde from the 30th of June, but already there in June, in your 11th house of the future and your vision and gains. But also it continues right into the end of August. It continues down through till the end of August. And so this journey of Mercury is it will be by the third week of August that it moves into Leo. And no, it'll be before then. Sorry, it'll be the 9th of August that it moves into Leo. And it will be the third week of August that it moves into your sign. And that will be part of the eclipse videos that I will do for you. The reason that matters is because it's your ruler and it's connecting your sense of what the future may hold for you after a long period of consideration with that retrograde cycle from your ruler. And the moon is illuminating what the impact will be on your day-to-day life. Now, this may be news that you receive. It may be like, hey, guess what? Your job is changing. Hey, guess what? Your job doesn't exist anymore. Or, hey, guess what? I've got a job for you, whatever the thing is. But it's going to be important what this is because it's going to perpetuate a cycle. It's highlighting a cycle that has already been ongoing for a year and a half. It continues for a year and a half and then regenerates also at this 6-degree point in January 2028 at an eclipse at this point. And that will be, you can learn more about that in the introduction. And Uranus is at the top of your chart. You're in an extended period of 7 years of really changing how you show up. It's a reconfiguration of your sense of priorities, your sense of social status. When Uranus went through my 10th house, especially as it approached my midheaven, that's when I realized I was an astrologer, for example. And up until that point, I'd been dabbling in astrology, I'd been doing it for friends and stuff, but I never saw myself that way. And you're in this dynamic of a different way of seeing yourself in your role in life. And now you're seeing how this is impacting you every day. This is part of that. Now you do have a lovely Venus in your first house. It's always nice having Venus in the first house. It makes you feel more social, more happy and outgoing. She rules your second house, so maybe there's some concern again with reference to the job situation or whatever's happening there. She's squaring Mars from your 10th, and she rules your second. So Venus will spend a lot of time in your second and third houses during the retrograde, and I'll talk about that too. And basically, as of August, the 7th of August, she's in your second house for 2 months. 2 months? Yeah, till the 10th of September for 1 month. She's in your second house. But then we'll go back and forth. So this matters to you, what's going on here, because she's in your first house at this time, and that's quite symbolic that you're picking this up, especially by square to Mars in your 10th. It's a very powerful, ambitious signature here with a focus on your value. Right. I would need to see your chart to go deeper into that. Saturn is ruling your sixth house from your eighth house, so maybe there's some concern also about shared resources. I've already spoken about this in other videos. There may be some need to reconstruct a bond with somebody, get more serious about a bond, get over fears of intimacy or fears of having enough, fears of what is available to you coming through others. There may be some issues around inheritance or something like that, where there's a loss that may or may not feel compensated, and that can be a person that you're losing, or it can be a loss financially. And again, I'd have to see your chart. Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. I just wanted to highlight really the moon. I will be coming back again and again to talk about all these other elements, which are so important. And I will see you in the next video. And so Libra, we have this lunation in your fifth house, a very fortunate house, trinal to you, and demonstrating something about how you show up. I've spoken to you about this many, many times. This is about finding a way of seeing yourself and being aware of how you're reflecting back to others who you are at this time. And also, be sure to listen to the Jupiter in Leo video. Be sure to listen to the nodal axis shifting, because that tells you a lot more about this. But the fact that the moon is now triggering that, the moon is being, of course, highlighted by the sun in your 11th. So back to the fifth house, you are seeing yourself reflected in the eyes of others. And what does that mean? This can also be with reference to children, or creative dynamics, creative projects, business projects. All these kinds of things can be part of that story. And your ruler is in the 12th house at this time. So there may be something here that is concerning you, or needing to be worked out based on something that feels like it's no longer there for you or no longer relevant, or something that just hasn't really fully revealed itself yet. When the ruler's in the 12th, there's often some kind of an aspect of self that we're not quite ready for. And again, notice that she's going to move into your first house by the 7th of August, and she'll stay there till the 10th of September, and then come back and forth, because Venus is retrograde this year. So your ruler will be retrograding in your sign, back and forth with your second house. I'll come to another video to describe that, but this lunation for you is with Juno as well. So there's some kind of issue around contractual dynamics that might involve a romantic relationship. It's ruled by Saturn in your 7th, or it could be a business relationship as well. And so what is the bond, the contract? Is it a contract with your children? Is it a marital, spousal type contract? Is there something here that you're recognizing you need to pay attention to? You need to maybe give more depth and awareness to. It's quite potent in the realization. So I think there's going to be something that just makes sense to you at the end of this month, at the end of July. It's going to make sense to you. And the fact that it's ruled by Saturn, which is stationary retrograde, it's only just stationed retrograde a couple of days before this lunation, and it really hasn't left the degree of its retrograde station. It's just hanging there. And so there feels like maybe there's this moment of pause, and this can also be why there may be this feeling of I'm not ready to figure this out yet, with Venus in the 12th house, hidden from you, or dependent on something that's not yet clear. Um, a relationship dynamic that can't be identified or needs to be looked at in intimacy. Is it about loss? Is it about financial loss? Is it about something to do with what needs to be expressed in a relationship itself that you're realizing? And this is really, think about this from the point of view of how you see yourself through the eyes of others, including, your public face or friends or acquaintances, groups and people you associate with, or the audience if this is professional. Um, and having a sense of also what you're bringing to the lives of others as well. If this is about your children, there may be something that is being revealed either through a child or revealed to you because of a child, maybe about their life or what's going on with them, or it may be how you're being influenced by them or your influence on them. Of course, all of that can be true. And of course, Venus, your ruler, is being squared by Mars in the 9th house. So there's a continuing, this ongoing sense of trying to discover your purpose that's baked into this moment in time as well. There's a lot of tension. Maybe it's about what will be the price of changing my way of showing up? What will be the cost to me of, if I show up this way as opposed to this way? So there's some tension that's part of this full moon realization as well that will need to be worked through. And again, nothing needs to be done on the day, but many times things can be revealed around this time. All right, we'll leave it at that, Libra, and I will see you in the next video. And Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So this lunation is in your 4th house. This is often it's a sense of letting go of something. It's the ending of something in the 4th house. It's technically sort of midnight in terms of the chart itself. And it can also be related to what is not shown to other people. So there's a revelation here about what you feel, your foundation in life, your psychological or emotional foundation, your sense of security, how you're resonating with your family, how you're resonating with your people, including like the people that you come from, your lineage, or your nation, your national identity, your inherited identity. All of that can be something that is revealed to you at this time. Your modern ruler Pluto is there with this moon. I look to your traditional ruler Mars to find out more detail, let's say. And Mars is in the 8th house, and it's not clear yet, perhaps, what that represents to you, because it's still working its way through understanding something that may feel private or secret, again, with a realization of something that is either between you and another that needs to be worked out, that may not be entirely easy, or between you and what you share with another in terms of finances or, values and things like that. There's a modification here because Mars is modifying. It's not there to pull things together. It tears things apart. It restructures things in ways that are sometimes necessary and sometimes just creating frustration. Mars also rules well, of course, your house of self, but also your 6th house, which is where Saturn is, and that's what's ruling this lunation. So we're tying into something that feels like work or an obligation experience as well. Maybe impacting your health. I've spoken a lot about this in terms of the nodal axis shifting. So this has been you will hear these themes again and again for quite some time. But the difference is that currently your ruler Mars is in the 8th house, and so that makes it all the more significant in terms of this thing that's going on behind the scenes for you. Something that you need to maybe overcome in terms of fear of intimacy, or fear of what is coming from another person or through another person. This, of course, it's the house of occult as well. And the fourth house is also where you get this feeling of security or a feeling of what feels natural, like what comes naturally to me, and even in the privacy of my own home kind of feeling. And with Mars in the eighth house, there may be something that you're realizing either about psychological stuff, especially with Saturn in the sixth as well, or about occult things that actually you can work with, because then we have the Sun and Jupiter up there with the South Node going through your 10th house and realizing maybe there's this new thing that you want to bring through how you work that can actually be a source of income or a new way of working. Um, difficult to say more without seeing your chart. Mars is your ruler is squaring Venus in your 11th, so there's something here also connecting you to gains from what you do or your connection with other people. Um, and Mercury is ruling that 11th house from the ninth, so there's something to do with your vision for life and sharing perhaps a sense of purpose in a social way that is connecting you through that Venus with other people. And this can also be part of this change in your everyday life that is being reflected here and how you feel about that. What makes you feel secure is the prime question here. What do I need to feel stable, to feel secure, to feel like I'm coming home to myself? And that may be through the expression of what I do out in the world, but that is different to what has come before. It's a big focus on that need for inner stability, personal stability, and maybe even literally a home. Moon also represents the home. Is this about finding a new home that requires a lot more effort? Maybe requires some new mortgage or something else that also feels like it's challenging. And again, your personal chart will reflect that. It's hard to say these in generalities, just giving you a bunch of ideas for what it might represent. Okay, Scorpio, I will see you in the next video. Sagittarius, your ruler is involved in this lunation. So Jupiter is your ruler and it's with the sun, has just minutes before the full moon has just been in the heart of the sun, creating a whole new cycle. The annual cycle of Jupiter when the sun meets it is an interesting place to notice, and especially because it's at a special degree where the lunation is happening. And this particular lunation is happening with Pluto and Juno. So this is in your third house, which represents contracts. It's something to do with the idea of what you agree with people, what you exchange with people. That can include siblings or extended family. That can include friends and people that you know socially in your surroundings, in your neighborhood, in the place around you. Some recognition of ways of communicating that need to be um, you need to pay attention to that, or you need to become more clear around communication. And again, if that's a contractual thing that might be tied into the Mercury retrograde that you just had in the house of shared resources, what you share with others, whether it's financial or in terms of values or intimacy. All of this can also connect to things like teaching. What do you need to show or say? What do you need to teach or learn? Um, all of these things are possible here with this third house. The third house is where we use our courage, our willpower, our drive, where we make choices. And so always think in terms of what's my choice at this particular moment? Where's my current goal? Where's the action that's like here and now? The ninth house is your vision. It's like your life goal. It's the vision that you have for what it means to be alive. The third house is, okay, what do I do with this now? How am I going to do that? And this is where the moon is shining its light and saying, this is the place to put your attention. And so it means that there's a lot of, and this is the theme of the nodal axis too. There's a lot of need for you, Sagittarius, to show up in ways that communicate things differently, perhaps with more gravitas or perhaps with more of a sense of depth, especially because of the Pluto energy there, like really intense around focusing on what is real, what is true. Jupiter is hidden at this time. So your ruler is hidden at this time, hidden by the sun. And so you may feel that there's some things that are not clear yet. So give it some time. You don't need to take action immediately, but let this kind of come to your awareness. Let these things be in your realization, in your awareness. This is ruled by Saturn in the fifth house, the lunation. And Saturn in the fifth house is also trinal to you, and it's going to receive a trine by the end of August. It'll receive a trine from Jupiter. And even before that, it'll receive a trine from the sun. So there's going to be something that you're working on that's an expression of self. And think of that in a quite literal sense in terms of the words, the way that you communicate, the way you say things, how you connect with people, but also just in the way that you want to be alive, in the way that you want to be your Sagittarian self, living through life and being there, showing up. So there's something of restructuring going on in that whole domain. I've done other videos on that, so you'll see that wherever I've talked about these things, the Saturn particularly. And then also the fact that your ruler is up there in the ninth house is just really a blessing for you. So I'm not saying these things are necessarily bad, but it may be uncomfortable for you to wade your way through them until you get to the gem of it. With Saturn in the fifth, you have to be authentic in the way that you show up. Saturn may feel like you're restricted in showing up, but it's restricting is all the BS. It's restricting the false front. It's restricting a sense of self that is not you and making you kind of forcing you to come to this place of being yourself. And I think this lunation is part of understanding that. Where am I authentically communicating so I can authentically show up? And then you get to really appreciate that Saturn because it's like, yeah, you're right. I was kind of faking it there. This is also going to be a part of the story here with Uranus. In your house of relationship, Mars also ruling that Saturn from the house of relationship. So this is also clearly impacting your relationships, or you are being impacted by relationships. And that's something to reflect on, particularly as Mars is squaring Venus at this time. Venus is up in your 10th house of career and social status. So there's something that's extremely important for you here, which may be professional or in your marital life or in your very important relationships that is being reflected here by you're being compelled in some way to adjust. And it'll, in the long run, it's for the better. It may feel uncomfortable in the short run, but it will be a more honest place that you live through. And then you really will start to feel that the beauty of that Jupiter, your ruler in the ninth. So think of this as the cycle of this lunation, even in terms of the month to come, which includes several eclipses or two eclipses that are going to be impactful here too, but also in terms of the 18 months to come. And you'll find those dates in the description. All right, so I'll see you in the next video, Sag. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This is happening in your second house of your values, your money, your self-worth, your family, how your family or all those things, your income, possessions, etc., your resources, how all of that is impacting you right now. You're becoming aware of all of that. Maybe an awareness of what needs to change around that, especially with reference to Pluto and the North Node. Something surely is showing up in a new way, for sure, because we've got that emphasis of the nodal axis. I've done a whole separate video on that, so I won't repeat that. But just the awareness that comes from having Pluto and Juno in your second house. There may be some element of the contractual dynamic that's implied by the Juno co-presence and then the Pluto conjunction with that, an awareness of something that you have agreed to, maybe tacitly or explicitly, and that needs to be adjusted. How does it need to be adjusted? And this is the moon that will tell you that. Something, is it marital? Is it about what you exchange within marriage? Is it what you exchange within a business partnership? Is it what you exchange in terms of the give and take of family resources, family money, inherited resources? Your ruler Saturn is also the ruler of your second house, and so this lunation as well, and it's in the fourth house. So there's a lot of focus on family, family of origin, lineage, stability, where you live, property, personal support or a feeling of what you need to feel secure and supported. And all of this is coming through right now. Your exaltation ruler Mars is in the sixth house. You've heard me talk about this because it's been there for quite a while, and it's been there with Uranus. So things have changed in terms of your everyday life and in terms of maybe also work and how that shows up for you, possibly in terms of health as well. And these are things that will also show you where things might need to be modified with this lunation. Second house representing how you consume things. Pardon me. It also, if we think about this from the Mars perspective, um, Ceres with Mars and then Uranus representing in different ways of being in the everyday life and how you're nurturing yourself, how you're caring for yourself, the action you're taking on that. What you consume is the second house. That includes alcohol, drugs, food, um, what supports you in a general way. And it will be highlighted at this time. And that can be something to look at, especially in the longer term, through the lens of feeling secure, feeling stable. Health is wealth. Um, yeah, and Mercury has just finished a retrograde in your house of relationships, so this is part of a dynamic that is maybe ongoing. The moon is ruling that Mercury in the relating house, and maybe there's been a lot of negotiating and discussion around relationships here, of all kinds. Need to adapt, need to redo things, lots of conversations around relationships or people. Um, I'm losing my voice. I'm trying to think of what I haven't said, but I think I've pretty much covered it all. The one last thing perhaps is this square between your exaltation ruler and Venus in your ninth house. So it's a very helpful vision of something that you want to improve on in terms of maybe the sense of your bigger vision for life. And as it's trinal to you, very favorable, the Mars is saying shape up, do something, take action, take it seriously, do the right thing in your everyday life. And yeah, and so the results of this lunation cycle are really going to highlight the last 18 months and show you how you might need to make adjustments for the next 18 months till we get to an eclipse that happens at this place. Same degree, 6 degrees, 6.5 degrees of your second house. So a lot to think about in terms of your possessions, money, values, family, what supports you, and of course your self-worth as well. All right, so I will leave it there, Capricorn. I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, well, this is your full moon. This is such a big year for you. It's a big period of life for you, Aquarius. Um, your energy is highlighted. The energy that you bring to life is the zeitgeist. And that's something to keep in mind because in many ways you can, in an unusual way, be the role model, which is not typical for Aquarius. Leo is always considered to be the Leo leader and the role model and so on. But the Aquarian way of being is really our underlying reference point for many, many years to come. And you want to consider that you can model the best and the worst of it. Of course, you can lean towards the shadow, or you can lean towards what is the ideal of Aquarius. I discussed that in the opening remarks in this video, so I won't go back over that. But just noticing that this is a moment of understanding where you are in the scheme of things, how you realize something about yourself. You're seeing yourself. Um, you're seeing yourself in ways that may be uh, crystal clear in terms of what it is that's important to you, what you are motivated by, how you feel life is working through you, and how you want to show up. Because this is personal. This is about you. It may be about a physical thing, because it's your body as well as how you're showing up in terms of your way of being. This first house is your birth. Here you are. And Pluto has already been doing a lot of work on changing that way of showing up, finding yourself and your inner power, your inner strength. And the North Node is now emphasizing that. And then here we have this lunation, and it's the last lunation here that's not an eclipse. So you're having this energy of the node is there, but it's not an eclipse. And this is the last time that we have that until we get to your sign in 2027. And then we get a lot of eclipses, in fact, in your sign, more so than in Leo. Um, yeah, so this is really personal to you. Your ruler, Saturn, your traditional ruler is in the third house. And so this is also about how you use your skills, your talents, your knowledge, your capacity to communicate, and how you reach out into the world. And and that's something that is tying in with this Pluto dynamic as well as the moon dynamic. Of course, the Sun and Jupiter are across the way in your house of relationship. And so you will also see that there's a novelty or there's something different, something needs to change in that dynamic of relationship that will help you to transform as well. You're seeing that. You're seeing yourself now. And because of the relationship, you're seeing yourself. Maybe the dynamic is about you with reference to authority figures, authority of all kinds, or a father figure, a leader, a father figure, a political movement, a group, a social movement. Where are you sort of pitching your star, as it were? Um, Mars is also in your fifth house of self-expression, where we already find Uranus. And this is, again, mixing things up for you. It's changing the way you're showing up in the world, in your life, bringing out more creativity, more expression of all of that. And this can bring a lot more passion because of the Mars quality in the fifth house. And then thinking also in terms of the square to Venus in your eighth house, there may be actually some things that you need to recalibrate in intimate relationships. And it seems to be reflecting on you. It seems to be something that you are needing to deal with. It's what you realize about yourself. And all of this is then things that can be dealt with. And that might be about intimacy. It might be about your creative potential. And Uranus, of course, being your modern ruler, I don't use that as the ruler, but you can say there's an affinity here with Aquarius. Um, and of course, that also is part of this story by trine to this lunation, to your first house of self and how you show up. All right, I think I'm going to leave it there. I did say a lot here about this, so do listen to the introduction if you haven't already, and I will leave it at that. We'll come back to you many, many times to come, Aquarius, because this is really a moment in time that you are highlighted. And all the best, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This lunation is happening in your 12th house. So a lot of activity going on in terms of what you become aware of through realizations that may be more spiritual or more sort of revelations of things that may be revealed through secrets and through things that are hidden or being revealed through what has been hidden. What's going on behind the scenes? What is going on in terms of how you're putting attention perhaps on things that are not yet ready to be displayed, let's say, or not yet ready to be shown to the world. It will somehow impact your work, or it's about work, or it's about an individual or a situation that you are meeting through work or through even clinical experiences. Meeting somebody, this is Jupiter, your ruler, meeting somebody at work, meeting somebody in a hospital. Um, Something like that can also happen, or there's a revelation around the way that you're working and the way that that's impacting your overall well-being. Or finding a better balance in terms of the work balance in the give and take of that. Are you overgiving? Are you receiving enough? Would be a question here in terms of the work balance or in terms of the relational dynamic, in terms of colleagues versus what you feel like you're given. This is House of Hidden Enemies too, where we've got a lot of action going on here. It doesn't necessarily mean a person. It may do. In some cases, it might be an individual, and you can say, yeah, I think they've been undermining me, or there's been something going on that has not been supportive. a YouTube algorithm, for example? Um, or is it you that is the enemy? Is it you that is doing something that is not supportive of yourself? And this would be something that Jupiter is helping with. It may not be so clear because Jupiter itself is actually not clear right now. We've got the sun blinding Jupiter. We're not seeing Jupiter, your ruler, Pisces ruler. Um, but it can be something that you realize, oh, this is what I need more of in my everyday life, or this is what I need to do more, or this is how I need to show up more. Um, this is what needs to improve in my everyday life, so that I can get to this place of recognizing where it may improve my overall well-being from a spiritual perspective, for example. Um, this can also be with reference, because you've got the Pluto in the 12th and you've got Uranus in the 4th, it can be with reference to home, moon representing home, which is changing, or a dynamic around the mother, which is changing, or a dynamic around where you live, or the quality of where you live, which is changing, going abroad, going far away, going to um, hide, going to hide. Don't we all want to hide right now, Pisces? Um, Going to do something in a different way, but you're bringing your attention there in that secret place, in that place that feels more spiritual or spiritually guided, or there's an intuition that is coming through that just shows you what is necessary, and then it picks up on that in the everyday sense, in the everyday experience. Um, Venus is the exaltation ruler for Pisces, and Venus is in the house of relating at this point. She's there until the 7th of August. So there may be something that you're dealing with in relationship, but she's squared by Mars in the house of home, your need for security or your need to feel settled and secure, what makes you happy. And there may be some challenge around something to do with those things. It's brief, it's fleeting, but it's baked into this full moon configuration. So it may be something that you require adjusting to. There may be something that you need to do differently, or that there's a need for resolving or taking action based on something to do with home, or what you need to feel more secure. Is that a literal security? Is that a physical or psychological or emotional security? And this is coming to terms with something. And Mercury is in your 5th house ruling all of that. And it's just coming off a retrograde cycle. And Saturn itself is coming off a retrograde cycle. Both of them are stationary at pretty close to the same degree that they stationed at. Saturn just retrograded, Mercury is just stationed direct. And Mercury is ruling that 4th house. And Saturn, of course, is ruling your 12th house, lumination, as well as your 11th of future and socializing. So maybe there's some element here of your values or the money story. This can also be a realization. Potentially, the 12th house is about loss as well. This can be the loss in terms of what I have to sacrifice for something, what I have to give up for something that can be voluntary, or it can be what is taken away, what is gone, and you're realizing that's gone. And this is Saturn in the house of home, family, like the family structure, what supports you, not home as in like the home, physical home or whatever. It's like family. Um, and money and possessions and what you bring to the table, your resources and so on. So maybe there's some need to show up in a different way, but we're recovering territory basically since Pisces season, since last March, Pisces into Aries season. And then that Mercury in the 5th is giving you lots of creative inspiration. Could it be around children? Is there something here that you need to deal with based on children? So the moon in the 12th is ruling the house of children. So there may be something about a child. Is it a child that's far away? Is it about you needing to do something for them, or are they doing something different? And you're interacting with them in a different way. It's not unfavorable. It's Mercury in a trine to you. So there's something that is either opening up, or a constructive conversation, or a constructive relationship, or creative output as well. That is part of that. And it's that's ruling this Mars. And Ceres is all about your resources in terms of what nourishes you. and Mars is about taking the action on that or doing something that might change that, or it can also be about letting go of something, no longer having a resource, for example. So many potentials. I'm not really sure. I think at this point I'm just droning on. So I'm going to leave it at that. I've spoken a lot already about the Jupiter and Leo, about the basket, and about the nodal axis in recent videos. So watch those videos if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.